All right, welcome everybody to Middle School Mondays. We're so happy to have you here. So you are joining Colorado middle level educators and beyond for 30 minutes of laughter and learning today and on the last Monday of each month. So today we have myself, Megan Fru and Chris Frank over here. And together we're going to be bringing you teacher hacks, some timely tips, and best practices from educators across Colorado. So Chris, tell us about you.
Well, hey, everybody. I'm Chris Frank. I'm an assistant principal at Altona Middle School in St. Vrain. And, it's that time when we were looking at our calendar. I was talking with my office staff this week. We have about 23 days left. And looking at the math of it, that's like 10 or 11% of our school year. And we were talking about what that would be in the equivalent of a football or a basketball game. And it's kind of like 5 minutes left in the game time. We're not at the 2-minute warning yet, but there's like 5 minutes left. And, that 5-minute warning kind of period is that tired time where people are tired. It's critical, it's crucial. And I just want to honor where everybody's at in that 5-minute period. There's hopefully some good things still in front of us for the remainder of the school year. And we're going to learn about one of them today. But Megan, where are you at?
Yes, thank you. I love that analogy. I'm a basketball player, so I get that. So I'm Megan. I've been here working in education for 13 years as a mental health interventionist over at Longs Peak Middle School here in Longmont. And I resonate so much. I'm like between testing and lots of needs happening. And this is like the first, I feel like, testing looked so much different than last year. So it's been a shift for students and everybody. So this Monday, I'm like, I feel tired today. But it's also been cool. I've got like some graduation announcements from kids that are graduating this year that I worked with. And that is like the coolest feeling ever. That's been a warm fuzzy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
So what we do as a part of this series is we always start out with something that's kind of nigga. All right, you got that fixed there. So what we start out as a part of each one of these sessions is looking at something that really we can all have a common experience with from being a middle school educator. And so what we're going to do is take a look at some sights and sounds of some random things that have happened in middle schools that maybe we can all get a laugh at. So with that said, Diane, do you have our presentation to pull up?
And I just want to say apologies to whatever that just was. That was not supposed to be happening. So thank you, Diane, for handling that.
All right. Perfect. So these are sights and sounds from middle schools, and we're going to start out with our first one here. So Windex, is that Windex? Is it not? It turns out it's actually not, but it turns out that is a receptacle that may have been used by a middle schooler to drink blue Gatorade out of. So Megan, you want to tell us a little bit about what happened there?
Yeah, this was a awesome April Fool's joke by an 8th grader who, brought it to lunch and decided to twist off the cap and start chugging it in front of our principals. And it was very, there was a lot of like, what are you doing? To which then he decided to share that there was blue Gatorade in it. So
was that an April Fool's joke or just a thing?
Yeah, totally April Fool's. I actually spoke to the student's mom and she was like, I just don't even know. I'm like, it was pretty good. But we just were hoping that the like Windex bottle was actually cleaned out, So there was that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
What's this one? Oh, go back one to the cell phone. There it is.
Yeah. So this is an app that students found that is a razor. So they were giving each other like these sweet haircuts all day. I guess it actually has like the sound and everything. And so it was happening in the lunchroom, out at recess, and it was, it was so nice because it just was like so middle school,
I appreciate that.
I know, right? So everybody's getting their hair did at school.
In the fresh cut. They can come over and clean me up.
Exactly, totally. Yes.
I believe that this was a fart machine or something like that, right, Megan? Tell me about that one.
Yeah, so this was a fart machine, and the, I'm telling you, what happened is you could hear very loudly these just the grossest farts coming from somewhere in the hallway. And we were all trying to figure out where this was, and we literally could not find it until somebody finally found this. And I guess it attaches to an app, and then the app you can just like play things with. So it
So
was
a planted sound machine that made some choice sounds across the school. You get a laugh at that. I can appreciate some slight humor there.
Yes, exactly. It was hilarious. And then the last one, this is something I had to confiscate from my middle schooler, and I just felt like I needed to put this in there. Have you ever heard this button go off, Chris?
No.
It is like 10 different ways that you could hear the word no. So like no, 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 no. And it is the most annoying thing ever. So
I feel like sometimes I found myself using that lately. I probably could have used one of those at lunch duty the last couple of days.
I know I probably should bring it and do it myself. Yeah, seriously. So annoying, but so anyways, those are, yes, some sights and sounds from middle school. All right, so next we have our middle school Mondays teacher hacks, and this is just something that we put out into the Twitter world and other places, asking for you all to submit just even the smallest thing that you do that makes your life easier. And it's been so cool to have people submit and just hear the things that they do. And I think we talk about this a lot, where I think some people have these things that they've just done and they don't even think anything's that neat about it until somebody steps in their room and they're like, that is really cool. So we just love when you share these. So we'll share the ones that we have now, and at the very end there's a little QR code, and then also on our Twitter we want yours, so we'd love to be able to share those for next month. So here's what we got this time. This is from Joe Cushing from West Jefferson Middle School. And I love this. He says, this is an old cassette tape rack. It's an old Napa Valley Box Company cassette tape rack on its way back to temporarily house student cell phones. He said, if you're over 40, you probably have several sitting around in your garage. But I love it. I know, just different ways of like collecting those phones so that they don't have to become a problem, you know? And then, our next one from Joe
was taking some bike boxes and being able to use them. You know, teachers, we always have posters or student exemplars of projects that we've wanted to keep, and really how do we store all those things. So Joe said that you can get a bike shipping box from local bike shops and use it as a big file folder, essentially to keep some of these big things that you don't want to be rolling up and you want to be able to stack them. So I thought that was fantastic. So thanks, Joe. Sounds like Joe out there was full of some hacks.
I know he's got this next one for us, which I just love. He talks about how middle schoolers are too old to have their little like notes pinned onto their like, jacket or their backpack. And so what he loves is these wristbands that you get at concerts that I imagine you can just get off of Amazon or something. And as a way to help remind students about permission slips that need to be signed. So just get blank ones and then just have a little sign. And I think this is awesome, because I don't know about you, Chris, but this time of year, either there's some field trips planned now or either at the very end. And it is like so sad when we have a kid that isn't able to come. Like we try to call their parents and everything, but we have to get that permission, otherwise they can't go. So I love this idea as a way to help remind the students.
I think kids would love that too. The
Yeah.
middle schoolers would be all about showing off their little their reminder. Hopefully it'd be effective too.
Totally. Exactly.
And our last hack comes from Mackenzie Turrell. Mackenzie is a 5th grade teacher from Thunder Valley K-8. And Mackenzie says, for a warm up, I tell students to send me an email with emojis that you think represent what we're currently discussing. So this particular example was Mackenzie asked them to send her emojis explaining the 4 basic types of economy. And then students had to kind of explain their thinking. So really using some symbolism there, some light humor, and of course, getting some good insight to what students are thinking, and having some lighthearted discussion about how to use emojis. So I love that creativity. We're always talking about positive ways to integrate technology and how you can use it as a learning agent. And so shout out to Mackenzie for sending this one.
Super. I love that one. That's so fun. I feel like, yeah, kids would really engage with that. Awesome. So the next slide is just the QR code. Send us your hacks. We'd love to just have this collection that we get of just the cool things that everybody's doing and what's helpful. And especially if there's any, end of the year ones, that would be really cool to see kind of what you do for that kind of thing. So thank you in advance for sending those in. All right, so our next, the next thing we want to do, and what is like one of the most fun things we get to do in this program, is when we have guest speakers on. So we are so lucky today. We have Alex Armstrong here, and Alex is the IB coordinator for Sunset Middle School. And Alex is going to be highlighting strategies she uses to foster a global approach to learning for students at Sunset Middle School. So including, she's going to be talking a lot about the recent collaboration with students in Uganda during the 30th annual World Affairs Challenge. So together, their binational team researched how to grow food more sustainably, including a project to grow food for school lunches. So more than 8,000 middle and high school students have participated in this World Affairs Challenge, put on by WorldDenver since its founding, with 700% participating this year alone. So Alex, that was a mouthful. Just tell us kind of like where this got started, and I don't know, just share all your passions and everything with this project, because it seems so amazing.
This was such a cool project, and I'm so glad I had the opportunity to talk about it. My school has been collaborating with the Mwebaza Foundation for several years in doing projects through our classes, in math classes and design classes. We've worked to help just kind of implement some projects that they were working on in these 4 different schools in Uganda. And so this year I've got my Mwebaza club that I've had for a few years, but I heard about the World Affairs Challenge at an IB coordinator meeting, and I thought it just sounded perfect to combine design with what my club was doing, with what some goals we wanted to accomplish with our partner schools in Uganda. So this year was the first year we had participated. It was an amazing experience and just brought all kinds of things together.
That is amazing.
So tell us, how did this project work, and how did you connect with the school, out in Uganda, and how did that whole process go? As I understand, you kind of had one intention of how your project was going to go, and then kind of had to adjust. So tell us about how all that went.
So every year the World Affairs Challenge sets a theme, and this year's theme was the Earth. So you pick one of the UN Sustainable Development Goals to work through, and we were kind of equal between climate action and life on Earth. So that was the overall big arching problem we wanted to work on in our 2 separate communities. So our goal was to have the same sustainable development goal we were working on, but meet that goal in the context that made sense in both individual places. So the school that we were working with in Uganda is Mwebaza Infant Primary School in Chingera, which is just a little bit outside of Kampala, which is their capital city. So we'd been working with that school for a while, so we already had a connection with them, which is nice. But if you don't have a contact with an international school, the World Affairs Challenge can help you set that up. So if you're interested in doing this and you don't already have a partnership with another school, you can still make it happen. So with this goal of climate action and life on Earth, we were looking at how different communities don't have as much biodiversity as they should and as they used to, and also how we can feed our communities. So the project in Uganda was set to have the kids make gardens at their schools, and those gardens were set to feed the communities. So the community, the kids at the school could have the food for school lunches, and they could take food back to their families. And then in that, they were partnering with permaculture expert Ali Tabundake, and he did all kinds of presentations for the kids and community members about how they can do gardening with permaculture. So they had a lot going on. They were doing a lot of this actually in the 2 years that they weren't in school at all because of COVID. All of the kids there were out of school for a solid 2 years, and they didn't really have hybrid school like we had. So they'd been doing this as part of their school. So they were already kind of working on this, and that was really awesome. We wanted to work on pollinators. So bringing back pollinator diversity through planting different plants that would attract them. So we were done a lot of research about that. And then I heard that the garden boxes we were going to use to plant the pollinator attracting plants in were designated to be for food through the grant that was used to build them. So our kids were very disappointed. And then we started thinking about it, about how we could put food in. And then I got hooked up with Teresa Spires from St. Vrain Valley Schools. And she knew a little bit more about the grants and told us about the, I'm gonna make sure I get the name right, the the farm to school program. So we can take the food that we grow in those garden boxes and send it to the St. Vrain Valley Schools cafeteria distribution center, and then it becomes incorporated in our school lunches. And the cool part is we're not the only schools doing this. There are a bunch of schools around the district that are participating in this. So starting off, we're going to see school lunches that include foods that our students have grown, which I think is really amazing. So that made our project align better with what they were doing in Uganda, because then both of us were growing food to help feed our communities.
Wow. That's fantastic. Big shout out to you and your whole team for really just incorporating that world mindset and bringing that forward to your kids. Megan, I'm sure you have some questions, but one of the ones that I'm thinking about right now is just, what do you kind of feel like some of the big takeaways were from your students? Obviously such a big project. Kids always love connecting outside of the walls of their school, but what were some of those things that you feel like your kids certainly took away from this as their big ahas?
Well, I wish we'd been able to have the kids meet together before the competition really happened. And that was really hard because there was a 10-hour time difference and then a 9-hour time difference after our time change. So it was just really hard to meet. And one thing I would like to do differently next time is just make sure those meetings happen. Because I came up with some ahas about how it could work better. So it was really, really cool to see them connect. They've done pen pal letters in the past, but this year our partner with the Mwebaza Foundation brought the idea of identity posters. So they explored their own identities and like, what are things you see on the outside and what are important parts of your identity that you see on the inside. And then we related that to what are features of culture that you see easily and what are some deeper features of culture. So we went with the identity posters and then extrapolated that to culture. And so she took our identity posters over to Uganda when she just went and brought back some of theirs. So that was a super cool exchange. And I think one really big thing is I'm not sure kids in both places knew what was happening in the other part of the team. So our kids, I think, felt like their students were starting from the same place we were, where we're just starting. And it was winter, we haven't planted anything. And they were blown away by the work that the kids in Uganda had been doing. They know so much about permaculture. They had done so much interfacing with their community. Their gardens were going full blast. And like they were really, really impressed. And I think they didn't expect to be because they thought we were all going to be on the same playing field, but they've really done a fabulous job implementing their project, and our kids were surprised by how much they learned, just because of that different place their kids were in.
That's really cool. Yeah, Alex, and maybe you said this, but like, was this a class or a club?
So some schools run the World Affairs Challenge through a class, and their projects are really, really super well researched and extensive. Mine was in a club.
Okay.
So I feel like to run the World Affairs Challenge through a club, you need to meet more frequently than we did. We got a little crammed for time at the end. But the way they've got it set up, they've got recommendations, they've got all of these materials you can use to start exploring design and the global goals and all of that. So I think, if you've got a captive audience and you run it through a class and all of the kids do it, and you can kind of cherry pick the project you want to feature, then that gives you a huge advantage. But we ran it as a club and got so much out of it. So the schools that run it as a class are usually the private schools, but it's open for everybody. Anybody can participate.
And did you say this was your first year doing it?
Yeah. So
Okay,
we learned a lot.
Well, and it just makes me like, I just am so curious about you because I feel like, some people have said like this third year of like with COVID has been the hardest year, where people maybe came back in August kind of exhausted. So can you just tell me more of like, you decide to take on this really big and amazing project? How, why, where did you find the energy? I'm just so curious about that part.
Well, that wasn't really my intention. My thought was that this would make the club easier because there would be this structure. So it didn't feel big when I took it on. And then as we were getting into it, I was like, oh no, what did I do? This is so hard. And then that final day when we had the competition with the World Affairs Challenge judges, and we got all of the 700 kids all together, I was like, totally worth it, 100% doing this again next year. So I didn't think I was taking on a very big thing, but then it turned out that way and it was totally worth it.
Oh, that's amazing. Like, that's so cool. Cause I just feel like it's, it's been rough, it's been hard to be in education, and it almost sounds like this has been like I don't know, provided you with even more energy in a way, just by what you were doing.
I'm not a person who does a lot of sports. And so I know people always talk about the different sides of kids that you see when you're outside of your class in school. And it's been so amazing to get to know the kids within that different context. So we were doing a competition, they were pushing themselves and learning all kinds of new things, but it wasn't in a class. I was trying to teach them math or Spanish or whatever. It was like self-driven by them because they were the ones who were picking the ideas that we were going to explore. So it was really, really cool to get to know them outside of the school context.
That's awesome. That's so
The
cool.
other thing I just think is really cool that you mentioned was how your students were able to understand the strengths that another community has, that they were so much further along in their projects, and they had these systems developed, and obviously something that was really critical to their community, I think is just really powerful for our kids to have an experience in understanding another community and looking at even the challenges that they have through a strength-based lens. I think that's a really cool opportunity that you gave your kids, and hopefully one that will stick with them for a little while.
Yeah, we're still in the midst of stealing their ideas, as in our Colorado weather, we can finally start to put our baby plants outside and we're going to steal their systems of irrigation. So we're still in the process of using everything we've learned from them.
So do you keep in contact even now then?
Yeah, there's a teacher we were working with there, and the headmistress of the school and I are in contact through WhatsApp. And my friend Hillary from the Webaza Foundation, they just traveled there and came back. So they've made all kinds of contacts. So before the year is over, I'm hoping that we can have just a Zoom party with all of the kids who were working on the project, so they can just have fun getting to know each other instead of being so goal driven. And so, yeah, we're still in contact and we're going to stay in contact.
So like, That I love that. That's awesome and that you keep up the contact. I'm curious, like if somebody was wanting to say just start a club, right? What are some of the logistical things that you had to figure out that would be good for somebody to know, I guess, ahead of time?
Are you talking about with the World Affairs Challenge or in general?
I guess in general, but for both maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, so one shout out I need to do is to Dale Peterson at Niwot Elementary, because the Mwebaza Foundation is his foundation. And the way it started many, many years ago is that it grew from student interest. So their club, I think, has over 100 students. So our club is a lot newer. We've got 4 to 7 this year, depending on what part of the year we've been in. So Dale has the contacts and the relationships all really well established. So I think one critical thing is whatever club you do, it needs to come from student interest. But one of the things I love about our school is our students set up all kinds of clubs just because they're interested. It's not a teacher having an idea about we need to do this thing and hope the kids are going to come. So empowering the kids to come up with their own ideas and their own, using their own passions and like their own motivation to make it happen is, I think, the way to go.
Really builds that agency that we always talk about in terms of getting students to be in control of their future and having something that they're really working to. So give you
and to feel empowered to do something. So even if it's like sitting around and knitting with your friends after school, you're empowering to yourself to take care of some part of you that needs to do that.
What did your
opportunity?
Yeah, what were the students initially like when the club first started? What was the thing that was like their interest, I guess?
We started off doing a lot of design projects. Our design teacher, Krista Chiaravelli, came with those and tailored them to align with the goals for the World Affairs Challenge. So we talked about the detriments of cooking over an open fire, and that in a lot of the world, that's how you cook. And then we talked about, they designed solar ovens as a way to cook without the harmful effects of all of the smoke. Some of them were just for fun, but we designed water filters because in a lot of places in the world, the water source they have doesn't go through the infrastructure that we have with the Longmont water treatment plant. So we tried to design a water filter to filter out the water that we made really gross and dirty in the club, and they loved that. So she started us off with these design challenges that hooked the kids and built into what we needed to do later in the project. So also have a good team is a good tip for having clubs. Just have people so you don't have to do it all by yourself.
So true. For
I
sure.
I think that's something too that's just worth reflecting on for everybody. Oftentimes in education, we're either working on the next project, or sometimes we think of, all right, what do I have to accomplish this week? And really just taking time to reflect on the team that you have around you and really enjoying those moments for whatever it is that they are, whether that's a team of students that you're working with or your colleagues, and knowing that you're accomplishing something. I think it's good to just kind of slow down. And, there's so many things happening, throughout the school year. In the last month, there's got to be 1,000 things on everybody's calendar, but to just take a step back and be able to look at it and just really appreciate the process and appreciate your team. I think that's certainly worth doing.
Absolutely. We've got amazing teachers here in St. Vrain, and everyone is so generous with sharing all of their ideas and materials and skills. So I'm very grateful for all of my middle school teaching friends that deal with the Gatorade and the Windex bottle and are like, oh yeah, of course they did that.
Right. I know. And I love that you got media exposure with this and the kids got to experience that, because that's just the coolest. Like, I don't know. That's really neat.
They were really proud of themselves, and at the same time, we're like, oh, I was so awkward. But they pushed themselves. It was a good challenge for them.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Me too.
for sure.
Well, we are about at our time to start wrapping it up. So Alex, thank you so much for sharing your project, and a big shout out to the team at Sunset for really highlighting some exemplary work from both St. Vrain, our students, this local community and beyond. And thank you to our viewers. If anybody has things that they would like to share that we need to talk about, I think we've got at least one more episode left. We are send us your hacks. If Pinterest did it first, it doesn't matter. We can all learn from each other. We love hearing from people across the state of Colorado who are having success, and that's why we're all here. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, so next show is May 23rd at 3:45. And that will be like the week before school's out, at least for St. Vrain. So yeah, that'll be a goodie. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alex.
All right. Thanks, Middle School Mondays, for inviting me. It was amazing.
For sure. Bye.
Bye.